Welcome to the Digital Journey Podcast. Every successful online business entrepreneur has an incredible story to share about their journey to success. Listen and learn from top digital mavericks and online business insiders as they share their secrets so you can live the lifestyle you deserve. Your pilots for today's journey, Rob Fortney and Nick Nimmin. Welcome aboard, passengers. The Digital Journey begins now.
Hi, guys. Welcome to the Digital Journey Podcast, navigating your online business voyage. I'm Rob Fortney from the Amazon Gorillas, and my partner, Nick Nimmin, YouTube guru. Hey, welcome to the podcast.
If this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. And if you're returning, nice to see you again. The Digital Journey Podcast is produced every week for your enjoyment. Come back often, and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. All links are in the show notes. Now, let's get into the show.
All right, we got a great guest today. Today, we've got Justin Cooke, partner at Empire Flippers, and he's going to share his story on how he grew his business and how he helps other people either purchase or sell their business. And by the way, the show today is brought to you by Empire Flippers, so it'll be great to get their guys' perspective on what they do and why they're helping us with our show and why we're working together.
Well, Rob, thanks so much for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. We're glad to have you. I've got some. So one of the things that what Nick and I have been talking about is I really want to know. The first thing is give us the background of Empire Flippers. But my main thing I want to know today is what kind of businesses are being sold and what kind of businesses are people buying. So let's make sure we get to that sometime today. Because to me, I was thinking about how many different kinds of businesses there might be out there. And somebody told me that there were like 16 or 17 different types of businesses that you guys sell or operate in. So I'm really super interested in hearing about that.
Yeah, it's weird to see how you would divvy them up, right? But basically, if your business makes money online and doesn't have a physical storefront or a very local presence, it's something we can sell. So if you have a cash flowing online business, we can help you sell it. And that could be anything from selling Kindle ebooks, it could be a SaaS business, it can be an Amazon FBA, it could be an Amazon Associates or an affiliate site, an AdSense site. If it makes money online, we can help you sell the business. But we didn't start off kind of doing this. We didn't just kind of get into the online business brokering space. Joe and I are blue collar kids, so to speak. Our families, we grew up middle class in the U.S. We ultimately ended up being managers at an SEO company in the U.S. and we were happy there. We're doing well, and that company was really expanding. And we ended up hiring some people in the Philippines. We had a connection in the Philippines, hired some virtual assistants in the Philippines, and that really started to blow up. It really started expanding as the business expanded. So it was at an Outback steakhouse in the U.S. We were eating some bloomin' onions or something, and we were kind of like napkin mathing a plan to build out an outsourcing company and replace our jobs at this local SEO company. So we went in, pitched the CEO, CFO, and they went for it. So we were like, cool, we're going to be back in the saddle. We'd run a business before, a mortgage company that went out of business. So we were back in the saddle, and we're going to set up this outsourcing company in the Philippines. So Joe moves over, I stay in the U.S., and we're building this outsourcing company with our previous employers as clients, which was scary, right? We were back at it, but we were now doing business internationally. Small, it wasn't huge, but we were doing business internationally, and there's a lot of challenges that come with that. So as we were running our outsourcing company, we lost our previous employer as a client. They started to cut back on us, and we said, God, what are we going to do? So we started building small websites that make money, and maybe $100 a month here, $200 a month there. Started selling them and started talking about the process online through a podcast, through blog posts, and people really resonate with that. They were like, wow, they're explaining exactly how they do this. They're showing us what they're doing as they go along. And eventually we turned that into a brokerage. We allowed other people to sell their sites and businesses with us.
All right, so you talked about, so that gets you to now, but so you talked about a failure there, and I think one of the most important things about any online business or any business in general is failure. It's part of the process. If you're going to be in business, you're going to fail at some point. So tell us about that failure when you looked up and thought, oh my gosh, we've blown it up, and you thought that the word was ending, but what was the rose petal at the end of that comes from that?
Yeah, so we make it sound a little nicer than it probably was. I'll try to be a little.
Oh, we want
more
the download.
brutal.
Yeah, we want the dirty
brutal
version.
We want to hear about the ramen noodle months.
Yeah, okay. So when we moved out to the Philippines, now we'd had a mortgage company that had failed, and we can talk about that after if you want. But when we set up the outsourcing company, we both moved to the Philippines, and we brought all of our stuff. I mean, we're moving halfway around the world from the U.S. to the Philippines to set up this outsourcing company. And, we had what we thought was a no-cut contract with our previous employer. It was worth, $750,000 or something over a number of years. And so we said, look, we are settled, we are set, we're going to add new clients, but this main client, our previous employer, is going to be the one that kind of like gets us from here to there, buys us time, allows us to get there. Inside of 6 months of being in the Philippines, they cut back significantly, about half. Wow. Right? We're like, wow. And this no-cut contract that we'd all signed, and that's one of the first things we learned is that contracts are only as good as they're going to be followed. And if you're in a weaker position, it doesn't matter what the contract says. If you don't have leverage and you're in a disadvantage in the relationship, doesn't matter what the contract is. Because we're in a position where if they cut half and we go after them, they could just shut us down completely.
Sure.
We have nothing coming in. So it's like they can drip us, and we're not going to be able to go after them because we don't have any other resources. We're just not able to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So they continue to cut back more and more and more, put us in a really bad position. So we got to the point where we had all the staff. They were all working for us. We had to cut staff. We got down to a very core number of staff, and we were all in an office in the Philippines. And Joe and I had to make a decision on whether we were going to keep the office or not. And for me, keeping the office, it means you're a real company. You're a real business. We have an address. We have bills, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have a real business. And shutting down the office, then having everyone go to work from home just feels bullshit. It feels like we're faking being entrepreneurs, and we have a bunch of people that work from home or work from wherever. It's not real. And so, Joe tried to convince me, and I said, sure, I guess we can do that, but I felt terrible about it. He thought it'd be more okay than I did, but for me, that was like a low point because we're shutting down the office. Joe and I have enough to pay our bills in the Philippines, which are cheap, thank God.
Yeah.
Right? Because we were able to pay our bills in Southeast Asia. It had been more of a struggle, I think, in the U.S., but we weren't crushing it. We were just kind of paying the bills. And
so let me ask you, Justin, how did you push through that? Because you're saying that it was a difficult time for you. You thought that hey we're going the wrong direction. Sending everybody to work at home instead of being in the office. How did you push through it? How did you actually become okay with that and then start making progress towards what it is that you're doing now?
Well, here's a conflict. So I feel like when things are going bad, when the business is going bad, it's a good time to double down, to really dig in and work hard at the business, right? So that's where I'm coming from. My business partner, on the other hand, thinks it's better to double down when things are going really well. And I agree with that, but I think you need to double down when things are going badly too. And he doesn't feel that way. He feels it's more of a time for kind of reflection, kind of like deciding your next path. And so it was a point of contention because if I'm trying to double down and he's being reflective, that's a shitty situation for a partnership, right? It's like, dude, what are you doing? Can we get to work now, please? It's kind of important. So that was a struggle, as you can imagine. We fought about it. I mean, we had arguments. I think what helped us there was persistence in trying to make shit happen. So we had these extra agents that were no longer employed, and we're paying their salaries out of our pockets effectively. We said, but they're good. They've been with us years. We don't want to let them go. We had to force to let other people go. But this core, we said, no, let's do something. So we just tried other things. We tried, Amazon Mechanical Turk, I think at the time. And we're like, look, if we can just have them pay for themselves until we can get them placed with new clients, we'll make it. So we tried Mechanical Turk, and ultimately we tried building niche websites, which are monetized via AdSense, which is just advertising that you get paid per click. And so that was one of the other things we tried, and that one worked. I tried it myself. I was building the sites out, which makes sense too, because I was the one trying to double down and hustle. Right. And I think I found something that worked. And I said, Joe, I think this will work. Can you train the agents? And he said, yeah, I think I can put it in a process, take what you've done, put it in a process, and work with the agents. So he started doing that, and that's when we started to turn it around and found a new business, a new path to take. So I think it was persistence through a tough, difficult financial time, but also emotional, right?
Sure.
It was shitty.
So your way out of that darkness, so to speak, your light at the end of the tunnel was basically you figured out, hey, I've got this with the niche site. it's starting to work. We're getting the AdSense money from this, so let's scale it.
Yeah.
Let's have the agents come in and scale this and make as many of these as we possibly can.
Yeah, I did the work myself to start, and we spent $100, $1,000, or a couple $100 to $1,000 maybe the first month, and then we had them do it, and it was working, and the dollars were trickling in. It wasn't much money. I mean, less than $100 in September, maybe a couple $100 in January. This is like January 2011, I think. And so we weren't making much money, but we started to see that it was recurring and that it was growing. So by maybe, I forget if it's March or April of 2011, or 2012, I forget, it's one of the two. But we realized by like March or April, we'd spend about $10,000, and we might have built it up to like $600 a month or $700 a month. And I was saying, again, I said, look, I think we're onto something with this. Let's spend more money, right? Let's come out of pocket. Let's rob Peter to pay Paul on this deal.
Sure.
And invest on, let's get 30 grand the hole, 40 grand the hole, because we're onto some recurring revenue that'll be awesome. Joe was very against that. He said, no, I don't think we should do that. I'm not willing to come out of pocket. I don't want to invest any more money in this. We have to let it grow naturally. So we'll take the $600 a month we get, we'll reinvest that back into the sites, and that would have been way too slow a growth, because $600 a month isn't enough to do anything with.
Yeah.
I wanted to get that to $6,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 a month, and the way to do that is to scale up. So we because we were both stuck on that, it was an impasse, right? Like we don't know which route to take. So we hashed it out through arguing about it and figured out, look, maybe we can sell these websites, realize future cash, and then reinvest that cash into building more. So what we found is if we had a website earning $200 a month, right, we could sell that for about 20 times the monthly net profit. So we could sell it for about $4,000. We take all 4,000 of that future earnings from our perspective and reinvest that back into building out more sites. We're really like exponentially growing that to get to the point where it is viable and valuable. That make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I think figuring out the fact that we could sell these websites and businesses really helped. So we started off selling sites that were making $100 a month, $150 a month, which is even below our minimum today, but like that's kind of where we came from, building these small sites that made a little bit of money that people were interested in. And I think at that time, most of the buyers were not investors, they were not buying businesses, they knew they were buying these little mini cash flows, and some of them were like, look, I just want to see if this even works. Like, can you really make money online? Can I buy this and make $100 a month? So they buy it and they make $80 a month, and then $110 a month, and $92, and they're like, wow, okay, this actually works. And so, like, we were part of, I think, a movement of other people that were kind of realizing, wow, you can build websites and make money online. So that's kind of, we were a part of that thing that was moving forward back in like 2011, 2012 with people doing this.
Nice. So with the, you were talking about your minimums now and how it's drastically changed from that point in time. With Empire Flippers right now, if somebody wants to come in, what is your current minimum? As of this recording, what is your current minimum for somebody if they wanted to sell a site with you?
I like the as of this recording, because that's...
Well, you got to timestamp it, right?
You got to
be clear.
do it.
Right.
So yeah, as of right now, for like an Amazon associate site or an AdSense site, a very straightforward affiliate site, we'll go as low as $500 a month in net profit. And then for an e-commerce business, FBA business, we need at least $1,000 in monthly net profit. And the reason for that is that an AdSense site or Amazon associate site is just easier to run. Like, there's a lot less work required than an e-commerce business or an FBA business, where they're not always a ton of work, but there's enough to where you're probably gonna need at least $1,000 a month in profit to make it even worthwhile for a buyer. If that makes sense. And we actually, Joe fought me on this a bit, raising to those minimums, because it felt kind of crappy to like not sell the sites that we started off selling. It's like we're kind of abandoning our roots a little bit. But it was a financial decision. We looked at the numbers and we said, look, we're selling a whole bunch of sites for, that are under $500 a month, that are AdSense, or that are under $1,000 a month, that are e-commerce. But like the time we're putting into those is a lot. So it's making 30% of the money and taking up 50% of our time, or 10% of the money and taking up 50% of our time. So it just wasn't worth it. So we kind of chopped off the lowest, the smallest sites and the smallest businesses we were selling, and started really just kind of scaling it up.
So one of the things that I think I think that a lot of entrepreneurs aren't aware of, at first was that, that you can actually go buy one of these businesses. I think there's a lot of guys out there who are sitting in their office listening to us or in their car going to their job 9 to 5 and don't realize that, hey, you can get returns on money that you can't get in any other investment on the planet. Like, it just doesn't work that way. Like, you can't take, and get the kind of return ratio back. Now, obviously, it's not the same as sticking your money in a CD and in a deal. There's risk to it, but the return on investment. And I have a buddy, and I told him, I go, if you bought 3 sites and one of them worked, you're still making money because the return on investment, as you would if you sat it, in the stock market and in a low yield place, the return is huge.
It's significantly better. So I'll just give you an example. If there's a business that's making $10,000 a month, and it doesn't matter whether it's a Kindle ebook business or an AdSense site or Amazon Associate site, it's making $10,000 a month, and you buy it at a 24 times multiple. When I say multiple, that's net monthly profit. So 24x, you buy that business for $240,000, right? Assuming all things stay the same, you've made a 50% return by the end of the year. Now, you put some time into it, but it's usually pretty minimal. So a 50% return on the first year. So now, that's ridiculous return, right? Rather than some low-yield bond or something. Now, with ridiculous returns comes ridiculous risk. So there are high risks that come with this. So like you can buy it and it can, inside of 6 months, 9 months, start declining. You can run into problems with Amazon. Amazon could shut down your account. You could lose earnings. You could run into problems with your organic rankings. You could have competitors step into the mix that, like you had paid traffic on Facebook, you have competitors that raise that price to where it's unsustainable and you get no ROI. So there's a ton of risk in business in general, but with online businesses specifically. So it's a different kind of risk than an offline business, and that's part of the reason. I also think that it's a super early, we're very niche, right? Like people in the niche know who we are. They know the business we do, but that's not it's not mainstream at all. Most mainstream people haven't heard of this kind of buying online cash flows and assets. It was
a new concept for me as well until I connected with you guys. It was a new concept for me as well. And I've been working online for like 11 years now. And the idea of actually I've heard of people selling websites and things like that, and it was just kind of right. It was just kind of out there in the ether. It wasn't something that I was kind of tuned into, but now it's like, wow, you should start building websites to sell. Like it's
an asset that you can sell, that you can buy someone else's. It's a way to kind of diversify your online portfolio. It's a way to, as an online entrepreneur, take some chips off the table, right? Sure. You can also do things where you retain some equity. So as a seller, you sell it, you keep 20%, and you work with the buyer to continue to grow out the site as a consultant. So there's lots of interesting kinds of deal structures and ways you can do business that are not just a straight, here's the cash, here's the business deal. And that's one of the things we're really good at is when people are looking to sell their business with us, we work with the buyer and seller to kind of work out the best deal structure for both parties. So, one may not want to put all the cash up front, so they do an earn-out, which means basically some of it is paid over time, or the seller keeps a little bit of equity because they want some of the long-term growth. I think that's one of the real value adds we add. But yeah, I think a lot of people don't know about this. They think, maybe if I build this business and it gets big enough, then someone's going to come and acquire me. That's kind of the idea. Like someone's going to reach out to me and acquire me, and that does happen. And there are people out there that are hunting for that. But it's like, it's really hard for the people that want to buy to find the right targets, and it's really hard for those potential targets to find people who want to buy them, which is why we have a marketplace, right?
Sure, and there's this saying that says, if opportunity isn't knocking, then you need to build the door, right? You need to create the door, and you guys are essentially that door for people that have websites that are earning income. That as far as on the seller or on the buyer side, if you have a website that's earning money, then they are the place. Empire Flippers is the place that you can actually put that site to create that door, to create that opportunity to where somebody doesn't actually have to run across you and research you and things like that to find out if your website is profitable for you or not.
That's one of the funny things about this business and why we know there's a market and why we know there's interest, because you have some people that come along and they're like, look, no way, they run online businesses, right? And there's no way I'd pay that multiple to buy an online business or Empire Flippers. Those multiples are way too high. We say, that's awesome, no problem. Why don't you sell with us?
Right.
Sounds like we sell for such a high multiple. You're crazy not to sell. You should sell all of your businesses. We'd be happy to take them. right? And then someone else is like, oh my God, I would, just like the flip side is the reverse is always true in our business. So it's funny when we get people saying on one side or the other, oh, they're too low or they're too high. Well, then do the other one.
Right.
They're way too low. Oh, really? Then you should be buying businesses from us.
Right.
So it just shows you that, like, there's debate and lack of understanding on both sides, which is why a marketplace like this exists.
Nice. Now, back into your personal story, you were talking about the differences between you and Joe as far as your angles that you guys were both coming at it, and how you had some arguments in there as well and things like that to kind of help push you guys or to help you evolve through the process of going through that downturn and then coming back out of it. As far as partnership is concerned, like you were saying before, that it doesn't seem like a good balance because, he was looking at it one way, you were looking at it the other way.
Yeah.
But after going through all of that, do you think that, like I personally, seeing that from the outside, think that that's a great match?
Yeah.
Because it causes you to, kind of look at things in a way that you might not have looked at them previously if you do have a partner that's on that opposing side.
Yeah, so sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. That's a real cop-out answer, but let me explain what I mean. Sometimes it's the time where it was good was where we butted heads and we weren't sure, like, do we just invest a lot more money than the 10 grand we're already in on this, and just keep like doubling down and going more in the hole to build this up, or do we just not? Do we try and do it out of the cash flow it's earning? And so that butting heads got us to the point where we said, look, let's sell some off for future cash flow so we can reinvest. That was a clear sign of where our partnerships and our kind of like our disagreement on that came to, I think, a better option. Sometimes that's not the case. And people ask, me and anyone listening to this and watching this, like, is wondering, should I do a partnership? It's tough. I mean, it's really tough. And 1 + 1 needs to be more than 2, right? So, we got in the kind of partnerships that I probably wouldn't recommend. Like, we were long-term friends, probably partnered out of some fear, right, of having to do it alone.
Sure.
We tend to do that a lot. Fear will drive us into being comfortable with people.
Yeah.
So our partnership has worked out, but I think against the odds. I think it's more likely that it would have been problematic. And this is me speaking from all the entrepreneurs we talked to. We've sold several thousand online businesses, and we've seen a lot of different business plans and sites making money and everything, and a lot of them don't work out, especially if they're built that way. We got lucky. So partnerships that tend to do better are when they have they're coming at it from different places. So if you have one person that's already built up the business and they're looking for a strategic partner, maybe they need a CTO or something, and they bring a CTO on, maybe lesser equity, or they buy into that equity, but there's someone that's the original founder. Partnerships like that, I think, can really be effective. I've known others like us, like our friends Dan and Ian over at Tropical MBA have a we call it a marriage business partnership, where we basically split everything in the business. Everything's split between us. We make mutual decisions. There are some that work out that way, but I think it's less commonly successful.
So we're talking a lot about people buying businesses. One of the things that I remember the first time I was someplace and I met a friend of mine in Chiang Mai, and he told me he had just sold his business. We're at the lunch, and he says, I just sold my FBA business. And I'm like, well, I've been selling some of mine too. Thought I was doing great because I was just flipping them. I mean, I'd open them up. I mean, 30 days in sometimes. Boom, starter, here,
turnkey.
Done. Turnkey.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, I got no money in these things. I'm turning money in 90 days. I thought I was winning the lottery. I really did. And I had, literally, at the time, I had cleared out all of my accounts. I was ready to go, and I was going to pick a bunch of new products. And then he tells me, I go, well, what did you sell yours for? Oh, I don't know. I got $280,000.
Yeah.
You got what? So I guess where my perspective in this thing is that if you get back to you're wanting to start a business, instead of buying a business, it's building a business. And what people don't realize, and I didn't because I wasn't building my businesses that way. I was building my businesses for this long-term income and to try to grow and struggle through it and then, and have this cash flow that took me forever to kind of get built up. Well, now, inside 12 months, 16 months. So my friend Adrian, he takes $2,500. He goes out and he makes this golf, like a golf package. Mm-hmm. And anyway, he sells it. He makes about $2,000 a month in his deal. And one day he finds out about Empire Flippers. He sells his deal. So he invests $2,500. 12 months later, he cashes out with $60,000 as the buyout. Plus, he got his $2,000 a month. So he invested $2,500, and a year later, put $84,000 into his hands in 12 months. That's the lottery.
It's crazy. So here's the thing. So like, some people think that they're like, why would you ever sell your business if it's kicking out $2,000 a month, right? That's like your golden goose. Why would you ever get rid of it? And so one of our things is like that, the business itself isn't the golden goose. It's your skills that you've learned that allow you to build that business that's your golden goose. The business is the egg, right? It's the egg you're kicking out. So you just keep popping out eggs and selling them.
Right.
So I know people that do this, right? And they do a couple of deals, 2 to 5 deals a year with us, and they'll make somewhere between $50,000 and $250,000 on each deal, depending on how much the business makes. And they are just cranking out business and cranking out money. I've got some really interesting examples of this. There's a guy, I'm not going to say his name, but he's 27 years old, lives in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, sold a business with us for $290,000.
Nice.
Right? All his buddies were like, damn, I want what that kid has. And so like he's got buddies now. We call our Cambodian connection. We got a team of people there that are now friends of his and a team of people that are now building businesses to do the same thing so they can get their $250,000 payday, right? So we've got connections in Vietnam that are doing a very similar thing. We've got some Australians in Chiang Mai, friends of ours that actually do a very similar thing where they build out these businesses. So to your point though, the original thing you were saying where you're like, look, you can build like turnkey businesses and sell them off. They haven't been proven yet or they haven't made money yet, but they're like, look, I'll hand it over to you and you add the traffic, you build the business and you can make money. You can, but the problem with that, I mean, you can make money doing that and people do, but the problem with that, and I'll explain it more on like a content site basis, but like you could do that and sell it on Flippa, for example, right? You sell it for $500 or $1,000, $1,500, and you set up the WordPress, you set up the domain, you set up the hosting, you write some content on and say, look, here, the site's ready to go. But the problem with that is it becomes such a commodity. So if you're in, let's say Sacramento, or you're in Los Angeles or something, you think you're going to do that, well, now you're competing with a gazillion people that have the skills to do that. Most people can set up hosting.
Sure.
They can buy a domain from GoDaddy. They can put some level of content on there and, like make the site, buy a WordPress theme.
You can put that together through different services on Fiverr.
Anyone can do that. Yeah. Anyone can do that. So like the fact that you're trying to do that and sell that, you're competing with the guy in India who's doing it from his mom's shack and can do it dirt cheap. He's willing to work for way less than you are. So the real art comes in is like in the entrepreneurship, right? In the fact that you not only create the business, but you get it making money, right? And we're not talking like Silicon Valley users, right? We're talking actual cash flowing money. And if the site makes money and you can show this made money for a while and over time and it's consistent, that's what people are looking to buy. They're looking for something that's been proven in the market. And if people are buying stuff through the site or through the business, that's the market saying, yes, we want what you're selling.
So with that said, because I know you guys vet the websites that you sell. If somebody is coming into the space, they have a website and they're like, hey, I want to hook up with Empire Flippers. I want to have my site listed on their site. What are your requirements? Like what should somebody keep in mind? Let's say I'm starting a website today.
Yep.
What should I keep in mind while I'm creating the website, while I'm getting everything together to make sure that it checks out once I get things growing to the point that I listed on your site?
So I'll tell you some basics on what we accept or don't accept. As I said before, e-commerce, FBA, drop shipping, anything with more moving parts will require $1,000 a month in profit minimum, let's say over the last 3 to 6 months. It's $500 a month minimum for an AdSense or Amazon Associate site or other affiliate type sites. So those are kind of the minimums. We don't do drugs, we don't do porn, we don't do gambling. So we stay away from the same topics that most other major companies would stay away from, so we wouldn't do that. Although if you have porn sites, I know a guy that does total website brokering and I can connect you with that. But so we stay away from those. We're looking for consistency. So if your business has started less than 12 months ago, that's mostly a no-go. if it was started 13 months ago and you're looking at a valuation over $1 million, that's probably a no-go, or you're going to get a lower multiple. So those are some of the requirements. We're going to need at least 12 months of history, at least 6 months of solid earnings. We prefer 12 months of solid earnings. And the reason for that is, we like to do a trailing 12 months average on earnings. So because a lot of things are seasonal. And so if I'm only using high season and you're trying to say, hey, it's let's say it's January and you're trying to sell stuff on your FBA business on October, November, December, it's a reach, man. That's a reach. Sure. Buyers can see through that and go, not so fast. At the same time, you don't want to get stuck at a low point. Now, for the same reason, you don't want to get stuck in a low point in the season and be like, okay, I guess I have to list on this. No, so we're looking for 12 months of history in the earnings.
Now, as far as, let's say, the domain name, the hosting, the actual structure of the site, is there anything that you stay away from, anything that you recommend that people go with? Like, let's say, for example, if I have a site that I put together that has a WordPress backend, right? Like, is that an okay backend to use for what it is that you're doing, or do you have, or are there other platforms that people tend to buy easier, or anything like that?
Yeah. So in general, and I'll speak generally, and then we can answer any specifics about it. But sure. Generally, as a rule, you want to go with what's most known and most accepted. Now, I don't want you to do that at the failure of your business. Like, if your business needs to be uniquely coded to make profit, that's the ultimate determination of how much a business is worth, is how much profits it's making. So make sure the business makes profit. But all else being equal, a site built on WordPress is going to be much more sellable than one that's uniquely coded. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're selling on Shopify, that's going to be better than if you have some Drupal-based e-commerce business. So using the major platforms that people know and are comfortable with is better. Another thing, if you have a content-based site that get any, it's a website and it's not like an FBA business, you're going to need Google Analytics or Clicky. I know some people are scared of Google products. So we say Google Analytics is easy, if not Clicky. And the reason we do that is we want some consistency. Our buyers are looking for consistency on analytics software that is good pound for pound. Like, they know how to compare one Google Analytics to another. They know a Clicky, because we basically had everyone do that. So making sure that they use the same kind of things is best.
All right, Justin. So one of the things we like to stop down in the middle of the shows is to share what we call your digital toolbox. And when I call it the digital toolbox, because we all have things and places we're getting inspiration, we're getting ideas, those kind of things. And I think those are where the secret tools kind of, are hidden in our lives. So what kind of digital media are you consuming? Like, what podcast? Are you using any tools right now in your business that are, that's absolutely making a huge impact in your business?
Yeah, that's interesting. So I think earlier on, I'd say a couple of years ago, I was pretty deep into a podcast called Tropical MBA. So, our buddies are over there, they run the podcast, but they're talking about real business issues. Like, we know their business and we're friends with them. So, listening to them, what they were talking about on the podcast was legit, because we would talk to them privately about the same kind of business struggles they were having. So they were very transparent in what was going on in their business, and I just appreciate that. That's the kind of show we try to put on. So we look for other people that are doing something similar. I'd say for someone that's interested in potentially selling their business at some point, there's a book called Built to Sell that's really valuable, and it talks about what types of things make a business more sellable. Ways to kind of improve valuation, and it's pretty spot on. It's a really helpful book for people looking to check that out. So I honestly, a lot of my podcasts right now are non-business related. This is semi-business related. There's a company called Gimlet, and they started a podcast company, and so they got super meta, and they created a podcast called Startup. It's about starting up a podcast company.
Nice.
Yeah. So there's the guy from there, Alex Bloomberg, is originally like an old This American Life guy. I mean, they're all like Ira Glass proteges, and the podcast is super clean. Season 1's amazing, but you kind of hear the struggles they're going through in terms of like trying to build a startup and how that works. And there's an episode, I think, in season 2 or season 3 on like diversity that's really fascinating, and they tell other people's stories. So I'd say Startup from Gimlet Media is a great podcast to listen to.
Great. So the other segment we also do is we call it big questions with little answers. Meaning, I'm going to ask you something that probably could take an hour to give me the answer to, but give me, and this is that all-important thing. So I'm the guy sitting at home. I'm listening to this right now. I'm working my 9-to-5 job. I'm not happy either. I want to go buy a business or I want to create a business because I think there's two different, paths there. Hey, what? I'm going to build something on my own with the idea that I may sell it or still develop it, or I may just go buy it and shortcut that deal. But so I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I want to do this. What is it, the first step I need to do if I'm sitting at my desk right now and I'm ready to do this, but what's going to push me over the edge? What can you tell me or tell them it's going to push them over the edge to get started, to actually take that jump?
Well, between those two people, it's either you have more money than time or more time than money. If you have more time than money, you should probably spend that looking into how to build a business. I'd look at niche pursuits, I'd look at cloud living. If you have more money than time, you can jumpstart your learning curve by buying a smaller business, smaller website, and get into it that way. And it supercharges your learning curve.
Where would you send me? So I'm your brother, and I said, listen, I'm looking to get an online business. Where would you send me first? Where's the first place you would start looking? And what do you think the easiest business to start looking for? So where would I go get educated? And then where would you say the easiest place to start? If I'm a upper level manager and I manage the accounting guy, but I want to get into an online business, where would you say to start at, and where would I educate myself at for that scenario?
Two really good options, and I would ask some questions to see if you're more kind of the e-commerce. Do you dig the e-commerce, or do you dig the content type sites?
Right.
If it's content, I'd send you to Authority Hacker. They've got a really good course, and they put out a lot of really good content on like white hat content sites.
Right.
If it's e-commerce and you want to get involved in like physical products, I'd say Dropship Lifestyle is a really good community, really helpful community. And the reason I mention those two is we've sold sites from plenty of sites from both of those communities that make money, that are solidly built, that are sellable assets. So I know for a fact that their courses produce tangible results.
Right. Fantastic. Well, Justin, we appreciate you coming to the podcast today. I think you've given people some insight to actually buying and selling businesses, which give you that huge, fast track to being able to run down this path much quicker than just to, sit there and try to figure out how to wait it out for the next 5 years and pull your $1,000 a month out of your business. You can jump in. I tell people that cash, because I've got buddies here in Chiang Mai, and I'm living on that $1,000. I'm like, how much money do you have in the bank right now? I don't know, a couple $1,000. Wait, like right now you can go have $50,000 in your bank account right now and go open up 4 new businesses and still have $20,000 in cash in your hand. That's how fast you can move forward with this. So I think what you guys do is phenomenal. I see it changing the entire game. I mean, the fact that people are willing to pay shows you how legitimate online business has become. 5 years ago, it was this mysticalness to it, and I think the mysticalness is coming out of it now.
It is, and it's a rising tide. So this industry, we've seen nothing but growth. We've seen it year over year. I mean, this is a humble brag right now.
It's all right.
But we made the Inc. 500 last year, and we're likely to make it again this year. And I'll toot our own horn a little bit. Yeah, we did a good job, but the industry's growing that fast. So there are that many people looking to get into potentially buying online businesses. There are that many people that are starting to realize and wake up to the fact that they can sell an online business as an asset, that the industry continues to grow.
Well, I mean, the fact that you can sell one of these and then people are then buying them, I mean, that says everything about what's happening. Once people start writing checks for stuff in future money, then you have a real tangible asset.
Yep.
And that's why. And the FBA space, with Amazon, I mean, that thing's only growing crazy and crazier and crazier. I mean,
yeah, it's super hot. And it wasn't even a big deal for us a couple of years ago when everyone was starting off in FBA, because we're like at the tail end of things, or like we're on the, not tail end, we're on the back end. So like it takes a couple of years when something gets hot before those businesses are actually sellable. So even though people are talking about 3 years ago, it's only the last year and a half or so that people actually started selling those businesses.
Right. Well, I know a dozen guys have sold it. It's changed their whole deal around, so very good. All right, thanks for coming.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Digital Journey Podcast, helping you navigate your way through the online business voyage. If you're interested in searching for an online business or selling your business, make sure that you check out Empire Flippers at empireflippers.com. And wherever you are consuming this, make sure that you rate the show, give us 5 stars, we would appreciate it, and leave any comments, suggestions, or questions that you have wherever it is that you're consuming the podcast.
You can reach me at Rob Fortney Jr. on Facebook if you have any questions, want to talk to me personally. And I imagine you can get Nick on his YouTube channel.
At youtube.com/Nick Nimmin.
There you go. Thanks, guys.
You're listening to the Digital Journey Podcast. The Digital Journey is brought to you by Empire Flippers, the largest marketplace for selling and purchasing online businesses. EmpireFlippers.com.